I've come across so many mothers who were just like, I wish I was told this information. Well, I'm telling you now, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. And honestly, it's not your right to do it. It's not your body and it's not your right. It's the decision that belongs to your son and it's not yours to make.
Hello, activists. I'm David Candela, and this is my very first interview as the interviewer on Prevail over the System. I have decided to bring my wife, Zharia, onto the show, and I would hope that she would offer some really good insights and maybe different perspectives that others might not have had.
I hope so.
Right.
That's the goal, if anything.
Before we ever talked about circumcision, what were your initial thoughts or assumptions about it?
I gotta be honest, I didn't think much about it. It was not something that I thought was something that you really had to think about that deep. It wasn't until we ironically was gonna have our first kid that the conversation even came up. I remember back when I was like a younger or out in the dating field, circumcision would only come up amongst talk amongst girlfriends and friends. We would talk about what we would prefer, and obviously we'd always prefer circumcised guys because of the stigma out there, but it really didn't come up until our first son, which was about 7.5 years ago. And I thought it was just nothing. It was a procedure that was done and it was just normal. There was nothing else to think about it. Everybody else does it. It's America. It's a little bit more, how can I put this? It's a little bit more looked upon as a bad thing if you weren't circumcised. So I just didn't put any thought to it because it was just the social norm, really. Yeah, sadly.
That's very typical American culture. What was the moment or piece of information that made you realize that circumcision might be harmful?
Wow. You know what? Honestly, I can't pinpoint a moment. I honestly can't, because I remember for so long this was something that we went back and forth about. I was so persistent on wanting to get it done. And this is something that I fought for probably up to maybe 3 or 4 months before he was born. Honestly, I think I can't pinpoint it over a moment. I think it took time. I think over time, I started to be able to receive the information, finally be able to process it, everything. Because it takes time. It takes time to break down everything that you think is normal, everything that society tells you that is normal. I remember my brother, he wasn't circumcised. That was something that my mom was very regretful for. She never got it done. She never had the money to get it done because if I believe California Medicaid was not supporting that when he was born. So for years, I don't know why she focused on that. She was just always so vocal about how she regretted not getting my brother circumcised. So I didn't want to make that same mistake. I wanted to get it done and not do that. But over time, the information was able to kind of process through my brain. I think when you're so programmed to think that circumcision is so normal, it's like a normal medical procedure. You don't think twice about it. And now that I know what I know now, obviously that's different. But you have to go back to a time where everybody does it, everybody says it's okay, and everybody even says that this must be done. So it took a while. There was never a pinpoint moment when I was like, okay, yeah, maybe we should not do it. It took time, and it took time.
I don't even remember all that, honestly. I don't recall you having that much pushback against it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think it was a little bit initially, but once I came to you with a lot of information, you were maybe not on board right away, but at the same time, you tried to hear me out,
I will never forget the story. I took a nap. I was probably 4 months pregnant with our son. And I don't know if you know, but my husband is really into documentaries and conspiracies, and that's just part of his personality. And I remember him waking up and telling me that he found this video called Elephant in the Room, and he was rambling on and on about how circumcision is wrong, and he always had a feeling that it was terrible. And I immediately shut him down. I was saying, no, this isn't another conspiracy. Like, no, like circumcision is healthy. It's a must. It has to be done. That's really crazy. You still remember that? Because I was like, no, this is getting done. That's it. Final. We're not arguing about this once again, because I saw how much regret my mother had for not doing that to my brother. So, I mean, it's shameful, but, you know, it's part of the journey. You have to admit it.
For me, I remember, swearing that I would just never have a son circumcised if I ever had one. And I made that promise to myself about 12 years old. And it wasn't really based on much other than how I felt, which was, it made no sense. Remember the teachers telling us that it was no different either way, which I later understand is an outright lie. But my logic was, if it's no different either way, then why do it at all?
That's a good perspective. Yeah, it really is. I wish I had that perspective.
It might have been different only because it was like something that did directly affect me.
Yeah.
How did learning about the foreskin and its functions shape or shift your perspective?
A lot. I can't, honestly, I can't express that. I can't express that enough. The only time I was ever introduced to the whole topic of foreskins, it was always like, I was extra skin. It's extra skin. It's disgusting. It makes your dick dirty. It's disgusting. It's just unneeded. Like, I didn't even know it had a function. And I know that, like, to some people, they're like, oh, that's dumb. Like, every body part has a function. But honestly, there was not enough education, especially when you talk to other women in my life or other girls. It was just nothing. But when I started to learn about the function of it and that it does have so many other functions than just being a piece of skin, it was really crazy. I can't express that enough. And that's what I think is most frustrating when I talk to people about circumcision and how it's not just cutting off extra skin, that it provides a purpose and it's functions all together with the penis. It's insane. And it really taught me that it's not just extra skin. It's not just something you can cut off without any consequences. It has a purpose. It has a purpose. And that's why you were born with it.
What were your thoughts and emotions when we did decide to leave our son intact?
I felt at peace. I really did with my decision, and I felt happy. I was fully on board. There was no doubt. There was no second guess in my head of making the right decision. I was able to see interviews about regret moms and how they wish that they had the information. They wish that they had someone to tell them that they didn't have to do this. And you could just see the pain in their eyes. If they could just have a time machine and just go back and not do what they had done. I honestly felt blessed because I was able to have the information that I needed to have, and I was equipped with the knowledge that I needed to be able to save my son from it. So when he came along, I knew that I had made the right decision. And it's honestly, with that knowledge alone, it almost makes it hard to think how could you? I remember seeing my son for the first time and how small and vulnerable he was. And I just wanted to protect him from anything and every harm in the world. And I knew that I didn't have to expose him to torture. So honestly, I felt at peace. It was nice. Yeah.
How does raising an intact son in a culture where circumcision is still common make you feel as a mother?
I have confidence. I really do. I have confidence because when he was first born, nobody was really talking about it. Obviously, the activist people in the community, they were trying their hardest to get the message out there and reach out to people. But it was such a small circle. So, yeah, I had worries that, when our son started dating or when he's older enough to be exposed to society and their opinions, he might mutilate himself to try to fit in, and that was the worry. But gladly now it's become a little bit more of a social norm thanks to activists. I've had conversations with mothers in modern day time, and they are way more on board with keeping their sons intact. So it gives me hope. I honestly have hope. And honestly, you have to teach your children, whether they're a boy or a girl, to be able to know their body and accept their body for how they were born, just like a little girl, Why would you want her to feel abnormal about the way she was born? And I think that goes with my son. When we had these conversations later on in life, I would tell him, you were born perfect. There was no need to alterate anything about you. And if you come across a partner that is not willing to accept that, then get them to the curb, because there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with them. So honestly, I feel confident.
In 7 years, you've seen that much shift?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you yourself don't really stick too closely in that activist circle, so you see a lot of perspectives from the outside.
I obviously joined a Do Day group on Facebook, and these people are so progressive. Like, if you're an activist and you feel like things are not really progressing towards people being educated on the situation, there's hope out there. I'm telling you, I was actually kicked out. I'll never forget, it was 2018, and I get kicked out of a group because I was the only mother that was saying, you shouldn't circumcise your son. Here's some information. You don't have to mutilate him. And I was like shredded to pieces. No, seriously, I was shredded to pieces. Like, it was horrible. And so obviously, being in a new Do Day group and people are pregnant with boys, the conversation is going to come up. The topic is going to come up. And before I could even write a comment, there were thousands of mothers, hundreds of mothers just already educating this woman, this mother. And it was beautiful. Honestly. And if this was a conversation that was happening about 7.5, 8 years ago, you wouldn't be able to find another person. But there are so many mothers who are educated in America, because you can find other mothers around the world who are like, what? Why would you do that? That's not normal. But in America. And that's what I'm saying. So the activist people are reaching people, and they are changing society, and they are changing the mindset around circumcision, which is beautiful.
It's a wonderful testimony. It really is.
Hey guys, it's me, Pots. I'm briefly interrupting this interview to let you know about the Pots e-commerce program. It is vital to keeping the Prevail Over the System channel alive. Go and join us on our Discord to learn more. And best of all, it's free to partake in the Pots e-commerce program, and we don't need any of your information whatsoever. This helps us keep the interviews coming along with other Intactivist content to empower, teach, and update Intactivists with very important information, as well as being the voice for the Intactivist public. Thank you all so much. Okay, now back to the interview.
Interview, how much say should parents have over their children's bodies, especially when it comes to irreversible decisions?
Irreversible decisions. None. I think as a parent, I like to give every parent the benefit of the doubt. Like, you obviously want the best for your kids. You try to make the right decisions. But when it comes down to something that cannot be reversed, and that's something that could forever scar them, you have to really leave that up to that child, because a child eventually turns into an adult who's capable of making decisions about their life and their own body. So if it's not something that's reversible or something that can't be undone, you don't have a right. Because your kids are your kids, and you are their guardian, and you are in charge of making sure that they are safe and they're protected and they have everything that they need. But we had to acknowledge that they're not children forever, and that they eventually grow up. And they eventually become their own person. And so for you to rob them of something that they can never get back, or alter their life or their body that they will forever have to live with, it's sickening. I don't think you should do it at all.
It's really disturbing, isn't it?
Yeah.
How has this decision about circumcision impacted our parenting values or the way we approach other choices for our kids?
I feel like learning about circumcision made me question my parenting altogether, because if I was so willing to do something to my child without thinking twice about it, or putting him through torture without thinking twice about it, I had to stop and think and reevaluate who I was as a parent. Because if I was so willing to be like, shut my son down and cut him up and not think twice about it, I was like, what else have I been doing as a mother that could potentially harm my son that I think is normal. So if it's changed a lot, it made me feel like I need to question everything that I know about being a mother so I can ensure that I don't traumatize or damage my children. So it's honestly made me think that I need to be able to take a step back and reevaluate everything that I do as a mother. Yeah, so
I think that's something we do is when we become a parent, we reflect back on how our own childhood was.
yeah.
We'll take the little pieces that we liked, and then we'll throw away the pieces we didn't.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of curate good, or what we perceive to be a good upbringing for our own children.
Absolutely.
And I think that is a sign of a well-rounded adult.
Yeah.
What it takes to become a parent.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, it's not thought about. You know, I have conversations with mothers and fathers about different things. They're like, well, that's what my mother did, or that's what my father did, and that's what my great-grandmother did. But I'm like, we should always be in the mindset to where things can be better. Yes, things were done a certain way back then, but that doesn't mean that that's something that we always have to do. You should always strive to be better than your parents, even if they were good parents. You know, like I had great parents. How can I be even greater than my mother and father? So when you take a step back and you question everything that you do, I think it's important.
So what do you hope our daughter learns from us about bodily autonomy and personal choice?
I hope that she learns that autonomy is for everyone, not just for girls. I think with society, it's easy to want to protect girls and push the message that you are perfect. There's nothing that you need to change about yourself, and that you are entitled to make decisions about your own body. But sadly, that message is not pushed for men in America or around the world in certain cultures, especially cutting cultures. So honestly, you know, I want to instill in her that bodily autonomy goes for everyone. Whether you're a boy or a girl or however you identify, you have the rights to your own body, and that it's not what's between your legs that dictates whether you have rights or not, and how you should embrace your own body. And I think that's important. And honestly, that's my goal with both of our children. And so hopefully that she'll grow up being educated and she won't be misled by society and their lies instead.
What kinds of cultural or societal pressures around circumcision have you noticed?
It's all the way around. It's within politics. It's within social situations. You know, like I said, like, you don't want a guy that's intact. He must be circumcised. The doctors, they even have it on the board for babies in the NICU to be discharged. It's no matter where you look and no matter what situation you're in, when it comes down to the autonomy for men must be circumcised. There's no way of escaping it. Whether if it's in your dating life or whether if it's going to something as simple as having a conversation with the doctor, it's always there. It's always there.
I remember one story after our son successfully left the hospital intact after the countless solicitation on their behalf. I thought it was really strange when we brought him to the pediatrician, and the very first thing that this man says to us, he's looking at the chart and he's like, I noticed your son's not circumcised, but neither of you are Hispanic, so what's going on?
Yeah.
And I guess in this doctor's frame of mind, only Hispanic people don't circumcise. And this was so mind-boggling for him to see a couple like us not circumcising.
That's the disturbing part, is that doctors and nurses, or just the medical field in general, we put so much hope and faith within them because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, they're in charge of saving lives. We rely on the medical field. You get sick, you go to the doctor. You have a life-threatening emergency, you rely on people in the medical field. And so they have a lot of influence within our community and with, you know, society as in general. That's honestly the sad part. It's because we view circumcision as nothing but a medical procedure. It's normal. So for it to not be done, it's like something must be wrong. So obviously, people who don't think twice about it is going to follow suit. And the fact that it's just so abnormal to have a normal part of your body is absurd. And I've had conversations with people who are from the UK or from a different country, and they're not a cutting culture. And for them to see the total opposite of how you not being circumcised have so much influence, it's a mind-boggling thing for them to be able to accept, because it's heavily encouraged influence within our society. Yeah.
What would you say to new or expectant parents who are still undecided about circumcision?
Don't do it. Don't do it. I can't express that enough. Don't do it. Educate yourself. The information is out there. It was done for so long in America, and you could argue that there wasn't Google and there wasn't enough books, but the information is out there. And that's with everything. If you're going to make a permanent decision for your child, you should look into it. Don't ever feel like your biased opinion overrules the true facts of a situation. And, don't do it. Don't do it. And don't let other parents influence your decision. This is something that belongs to your child, and that is up to your child. And the information is out there. There's no excuse to do that in this day and age. There's just not. I believe, like I said, I believe every mother wants to protect their child, and they want to make the right decisions. And some mothers out there truly believe that they have to strap their newborn son down and torture them, and you don't have to do it. And I've come across so many mothers who were like, I wish I was told this information. Well, I'm telling you now, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. And honestly, it's not your right to do it. It's not your body, and it's not your right. It's the decision that belongs to your son, and it's not yours to make, as blunt as that sounds,
The singular moment, but it has a lifetime of ramifications.
Absolutely. It does.
Okay, that was Zharia. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'll put her links down in the description below so you can follow her. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this interview and our other Intactivist content that we release every single week. Please share and like this video to get this out to more people. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!